Yes, and welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. Welcome to those watching live on YouTube. I'm, of course, your co-host, Menners. I'm joined by my regular offsider, Paul Dennett. Paul, how are you?
G'day, Menners. G'day, everyone. Very happy. Spring is here. For those of you who are insistent on saying that it starts on the equinox or whatever, no, in Australia it starts on the 1st of September. It's here.
Good. Paul, I forgot to tell you, can you turn your mic down a little bit while
sure.
I introduce our guest? I meant to say that after the last show. Now,
Yes, I meant to do that as well.
Now, on the last show, I told a lovely story about I started the Australian Cricket Podcast. I thought I'd cornered the fucking market. And then a few weeks later, Can't Bowl, Can't Throw starts. And all of a sudden, I've got some stiff competition. So it's only taken me 9 years, but I've swallowed my pride and I've reached out. And firstly, we have Kat Jones from Can't Bowl, Can't Throw. Welcome.
Hello, lovely to be with you, Menners. I'm surprised we haven't podcasted together before. It seems unusual, but anyway.
It's because, for the first 3 years, all I did was rubbish you to my co-host Macca. We used to have so many different names, and joining us as well is Kat's co-host Dan Liebke. Dan, author, cricket writer, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on the show.
No, glad to be here.
So Can't Bowl, Can't Throw started with Dennis Freedman, who's now in hiding from the Indian Secret Service. Thoughts and prayers with Dennis. I didn't ask him on because I didn't want the Secret Service after me as well.
No, exactly.
And we would have had to put that voice changer over him as well. So.
Menners, you would love the attention. You would love the attention.
Maybe. And then I was thinking of cricket podcast romances, and Kat and Dan, you're not the only ones. I don't know.
Really?
So you and Paul.
You and Paul, congratulations.
Thank you.
So did you two meet through the podcast?
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, we've both been on Twitter and chatted back and forth, but the podcast was where we first got a chance to speak to one another. And then I left the podcast about 3 months later and left her with Dennis for a few years.
Yeah, that was really romantic. He left me with Dennis. It was glorious.
That's really nice. So, and how long have you been together?
Well, how long? You said it was 9 years, right?
Yeah.
9 years.
Well, when did you start your podcast? If we were about the same time, right?
Oh, okay, wow. Okay, well, wow. And then there's another couple, Tasneem Summer Khan and Adam. So he's a New Zealand cricket podcaster, and Tasneem has been on this show and many others. And they're now married. I just messaged you yesterday because I wanted to make sure they hadn't split up yet before I brought it up on the show. But they haven't split up. They've just been on their honeymoon in Lake Como.
Yeah.
Well, that would be a little quick if they had then. Yeah.
Well. I mean,
we actually met Taz last time we were in England, so on the 2019 Ashes. So we bumped into her and had a few drinks with her.
Yep. So cricket podcasts, bringing people together. Some people use Tinder or Hinge, but start a cricket podcast. You never know.
Yeah,
much more efficient.
Definitely. And we are actually in the same house, by the way. After 9 years, we are in the same house. We're just going to prove it now. I'm just going to put my hand over here.
So for those listening on the podcast, they're kissing. They're in bed. Paul and I are in bed. Kat and Dan are in bed. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
Paul looks like he's in an underground toilet of some kind.
I think he's in Dennis's secret lair.
I think it's because I'm crouching because the heights don't match up.
All right, so look, we better get on to the cricket talk. One of our listeners, Jack, won't be happy with all that small talk. Jaleesa is not here this week. One of our listeners wrote to us and wasn't happy with Jaleesa. She's taken it pretty much to heart and is not on the show again. This listener has written in and apologized and backtracked. So all should be well, but we're hoping to get Jaleesa back on the show soon.
Since when do podcast hosts care what their listeners think?
Do you get hate mail? You get much hate mail?
No, we forwarded to Dennis.
And I should speak up for Jaleesa. She demonstrably didn't care. She's very, very relaxed about these sorts of things, Menners. So don't make up nonsense.
Hopefully she'll be back next week if she gets over it.
And if not, she'll send you a hate mail letter, Menners.
Yes, I'll be getting some text messages after this. Well, let's get into a lot to get through. Lots of cricket news. The World Cup squad was announced today. There is a riveting series going on with against Zimbabwe that's just capturing the nation's hearts as we speak. And also, there's a new cricket term which I'm a big fan of. So a lot to get through. Let's get into the cricket headlines brought to you by Piccolo Podcasts. So the World Cup squad was announced today. Big news. Mitchell Swepson was left out of the squad that won the World Cup, and Tim David has been included. Apart from that, it's the same squad that won the World Cup late last year in the UAE. I guess I'll start with our guest. Dan, what did you think of the squad?
I'm pretty happy with the squad. I have Tim David fever. I've had Tim David fever for a while now, so I'm very glad to see him in there. And the rest of it, they'll be fine. They won last year. They'll win again this year at home. Why not?
Kat, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just disappointed they picked Finch. I mean, really? No, any squad with Pat Cummins and Glenn Maxwell is perfect, in my opinion.
Paul, what do you think? What changes would you have made if you were the selector?
I want to start by saying I'm pretty happy with it as well. And God, I've had so many hating squads in the past. Back when they used to open with Marsh and Taylor, I still haven't got over that. The fact that I kind of probably Finch is the only one that I would question, and I don't think he's a terrible selection. I think he's probably just not in the top 8 or 9 batters in Australia anymore. I'd have him in our second side. I don't mean that disparagingly.
That is very disparaging, Paul. I don't mean it. It is disparaging.
That's why I said I don't mean it disparagingly, because I thought it did sound disparaging, but it wasn't meant to be. I just think that they overplay the how important the captain is, and that you just pick your best batters, and also how important the specialisation of being an opener is. I've written in the notes that they regard being an opener as the most sacrosanct, important thing, but all you've got to do to be an opener is declare that you're an opener, and then once you start opening the batting, everyone's calm with it. So I'll be more than happy for Finch to come and dominate the World Cup and win it for Australia, and it's not entirely impossible, and I'd be cheering for him if he does, but if I was being honest, I don't think I could find a spot for him anymore.
Yep, agree. Who do you think Tim David is threatening most in the 11?
Oh, what a question. Menners, he's the first player they've got to pick in the 11. That's
I'm a convert. And
I know. He's the best T20 player. All he's had to do to force himself into the Australian side is be the best T20 player on earth. Jesus, not much, but your question is well founded, because they're just as likely to say, we'll leave him on the bench, or pick him and bat him at number 7. He'll get to come out in the 19th over and swing a few. So they're going to pick him and bat him high enough to give him a chance.
Yeah, I think there's about 1,000 all-rounders they've got in there. They could probably ditch one of them. I'd be happy for Stoinis to go and Tim David to take his spot. I do see a spot for Steve Smith in the T20 side, but I'd have Tim David taking Stoinis' spot personally.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. But what you said, Paul, is really it should be Finch's spot. Smith should go and open with Warner and David, Stoinis, and Maxwell all play.
You know what I'd do? I'd open with David and Maxwell. That'd scare them.
Yeah,
that's fabulous. Great idea.
For those that don't know much about Tim David, who haven't caught the fever like Dan over there, he has played international cricket before for Singapore. So he's actually already got a T20 international average of a lazy 46.5 with a slow strike rate of 158.52. So this is it. When he
is that bigger than Maxwell though?
Yes, it is. So I looked it up. When he first gets a cap, he will have the highest strike rate in the Australian team. He's got the 10th highest strike rate of all time, and he's got the record for the most catches in an inning. So he'll just walk in there and own the dressing room.
And for people who say, but he was playing for Singapore, there were probably a few cheap matches that he played against there to get that record. His overall T20 record, his strike rate's 164 when you exclude the internationals. So, he's got a very similar average to Maxwell, but a far better strike rate, and Maxwell is the best. So, yeah, Tim David, he's genuinely a match winner. I'm so excited that he's in the side.
Yeah, in the last IPL, right, he had a strike rate above 200, I think, for the series. So,
yes.
he's handy.
Mm. So, look, if you're Aaron Finch and you're listening to Cricket Unfiltered, I know you're a lot of listeners. This is about when I would just switch off because Mad Manners is going to arc up. So I'm going to play this audio, and then just imagine me listening to this and wanting to throw every electronic device out the window. Have a listen to this today. This is Aaron Finch's lame excuse for another failure.
Just trying to work out my footwork patterns. That, like most players, the first 10 balls are your most vulnerable in any innings that you play. So it's just continuing to make sure that I'm starting my innings in the right way, and I'm just getting a little bit planted on my front foot.
He sounds like a fucking politician giving excuses for not scoring runs, and he's done it like 10 times. The media manager should say, shut up about your footwork. People don't care. People, what they care about is you scoring runs. And I'm sick of that. He sounds like Scott Morrison. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up. We don't want to hear it. That's like me saying, oh, yeah, I'm not scoring runs for Australia because my footwork's a bit slow. Yeah, we know, man. You're fucking hopeless.
He's a good player. The problem is, at some stage, they're going to keep on giving him chances. He will come good. And then you're going to sound like a fool for having said that.
He has to come good eventually. He's never been dropped. I mean, he could have been dropped a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He's never been dropped. So
and to be fair to him, his overall record is still superb. Yeah. It's just that he's tapered off a little bit now.
Yeah, but he's been tapering off for like a couple of years, right? He was pretty hopeless leading into, what was it, the 2019 World Cup, and he came sort of good there. And then he tapered off again. So maybe he'll come. Maybe he's just a World Cup specialist now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a likable guy, really likable guy. But he doesn't care about us. Doesn't care about the fans because we have these 2 games against Zimbabwe, and we'd like to watch like maybe a whole day's cricket, Aaron. I'm going to win the toss and bowl first twice in a row. Wednesday afternoon ruined.
There you go. He's not a good captain either. If he was a good captain, he would know that he had to bat first and give us at least a good, 3 or 4 hours of good batting.
Or at least if he's going to bowl first, he should, not put Stark on up front. He should open the bowling with Warner and himself for 10 overs and let Zimbabwe get their eye in, get their footwork going in the first 10 overs.
Yeah, and something.
I mean, I made the point last week that I hope Australia. I said it should be a requirement of the games that it be written into the laws of these matches that Australia has to bat first, just to give everyone the entertainment. But in the fair dinkum department, Finch could actually argue that had Australia batted first in that first game, we might have lost the game. I mean, we only won it by 5 wickets as it was. I mean, it was a comfortable win in the end, but the pitch was probably a bit spicy earlier on. The second game, we bowled them out for 90 odd. So, they've got to take it seriously, as much as we wish they wouldn't.
Well, they kind of do, because they're also in the ODI World Cup qualifying. They actually need to win these games to technically make the World Cup. I mean, there's no real risk that they're not going to, but technically they have to win a proportion of games to get there.
Yeah, and if they'd lost, the criticism, Manners would be super mad. Manners would be coming at him if they lost.
I mean, surely for them though, it's a better run. Like they bat for 50 overs, everyone gets a hit. Hopefully you put up a big score, and then Zimbabweans at least bat. They get a good run. It's like that. They just wanted to get to Townsville Golf Club. Swing a few in the afternoon. Didn't care about us. Didn't care about us at all.
I would also argue that
in the game in the 90s, I had the exact same philosophy. Australia should always bat first.
Yeah,
exactly.
Big time.
And that was playing England, right? India.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
I was at the SCG that time when we bowled England out for, what was it, 90 odd, and Gilchrist and Hayden got the runs in about 7 overs. That was the precursor to T20 cricket. But
and you paid for that match, right, Paul? You paid for that small slither of entertainment.
Back when one day cricket seemed to matter. Probably, yeah.
So Australia have won the series against Zimbabwe. So let the World Cup squad. Anything else you want to add? I'm done with that.
Yeah.
Finch is going to. Yeah, it's a good squad. We're going to win it easily. And then, so in those 2 matches against Zimbabwe, pretty convincing performances. Smith scored runs. Finch failed twice. But the bowlers really did. It feels like yes. Anyway, fuck him. So at the end of 2 matches, Mitchell Stark is on 199 test 1-day wickets, and Josh Hazlewood 98 1-day wickets. So
yeah, they both should retire. Why do they need an extra wicket or so? That's enough. 199.
Yeah, and the leading wicket takers for Australia are Brett Lee and Glenn McGrath with 380 each.
And I'll ask a trivia question now. Mitchell Starc on 199 is in 6th position. Who is in 7th position? And the clue is...
Oh, I have no idea.
The clue is
Glenn-
you wouldn't
Glenn
expect him to
Maxwell.
be... No, that's a good guess. It's along those lines. He's a batter. You wouldn't expect him to be that high up.
Steve Waugh,
Mark Ward.
195.
Steve Waugh. Yeah, Steve Waugh.
Steve Waugh.
195 one-day wickets. Pretty impressive.
Wow.
But he played about 1,000 ODIs as well.
He did 325. But back in the day, back in the 80s, he was in it off more so for his bowling than his batting.
Well, that was when there were no T20s to get in the way. We should be adding together their wickets for T20s and ODIs to get
That's
equivalents.
a good point,
here,
yeah.
right?
That is a good point.
Any takeaways from the Zimbabwe series? I was just so annoyed about it.
We should always have a series in winter in Australia, up in Queensland somewhere, and they bloody well should tell us about it. We would have had a holiday, wouldn't we? We would have gone up there to watch it if we knew it was happening. It was a very secret series. Nobody knew. It snuck up on everybody. And I think we should schedule one every single winter for sure. At least one, maybe two.
It's a good point, though. Like, it seems so often with sporting events that they don't... I don't consume, like, newspapers or mainstream news anymore like I once did. I'm on Twitter and everything else. Of all
TikTok.
people, I should be getting loads of sponsored tweets from, cricket related telling me these things are on. It's like they try to, same with the Socceroos game. Sometimes it's, I didn't realize we had a qualifier on last night. Geez, they kept that secret. Don't think the marketing strategy matches the modern world.
I think probably the Cricket Australia tweets and emails just go straight to my spam folder, to be honest. I probably did get spammed with lots of publicity, but oh well.
Yeah, look, it wasn't technically a secret series. Like, it's probably been on the CA app for about 6 months. So, yeah, I mean, I like the winter series. I really do. I really do. All right, so next big news this week is the Big Bash draft. And what's emerged is, which is really weird, the clubs actually want to win the Big Bash. Like, it's so weird. Like, they're playing to win. It's a weird concept.
Yeah, I don't like it. They should be not playing to win. They should just be playing to entertain the masses. That's the whole point of the Big Bash, right?
And also, I think you're exaggerating, Menas, because clearly the Renegades never play to win. Never.
They accidentally fell into it one year, but that was a big accident.
That was a good year. That was a great year. Yeah, but anyway.
It was because the Stars lost.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that maybe the solution is to say next time round, if they've got 8 players that they want picked, then have a I've called it a diamond round ahead of the platinum round, where it's just 8 players only, and you have to get one of them. And maybe Cricket Australia pays the whole salary for them, and that way they could have had Bravo and Pollard and Faf and Russell and Roy in that as well. And Livingston, 1 or 2 others would have got picked, and that way you get the marketing job out of the way, and then the platinum round kicks in, and they can then be clever and pick the smart players who are not necessarily the most marketable.
Yeah, compulsory first round. That's a good idea, I think. It would have been really funny to see who got the very last marquee player and who that might have been.
We'll take Andre Russell then. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
But it was really expensive, wasn't it, Menas? In the second, if they'd gone for it as the second pick, it was a bit expensive, I think, for most of the clubs.
Yeah, like the CA was subsidising the platinum round, but not the second round. So if you went for Russell in the second round, you ended up paying most of the salary. So for those listening, Liam Livingstone was the first ever draft pick. Trent Bolt went to the Stars, Sam Billings to the Heat, Chris Jordan to the Sixers, Rashid Khan to the Strikers. And that was where we saw a retention pick. I think Dizzy Gillespie was saying, tell him he's dreaming. Laurie Evans went to the Scorchers, David Willey to the Thunder, and Shadab Khan to the Hurricanes. So that was the first round.
No disrespect to David Willey, but can you imagine the marketing people at Cricket Australia when they had the choice of marketing Andre Russell or Faf versus David Willey?
So yeah, no Russell, no Pollard, no Faf du Plessis, no Dwayne Bravo, or no Jason Roy. And I don't get it. I was watching Russell on the weekend in the 60, score like 70 off 20 balls. Like
Mm.
no one hits the ball harder than him.
Mm.
But he can't be there for the whole tournament, right? So that's the logic of the teams, that he won't be there
I
for
think
the
it was
whole
9
tournament.
or 10. He was there for 9 or 10 games, so it wasn't nothing.
Right.
Like,
Mm.
surely that's enough. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
an
mean,
ejection.
he's the most watchable player. I've never seen a batter like him. That you know, I remember one IPL game where they needed 80 off 24 balls. You know, mathematically verging on impossible. And I remember thinking, this is about an even money bet with him out there. And he got it to about he got out with about 16 needed in the last over. And had he not got out, they probably would have won. He's not quite at that form anymore, but God, you know, he makes Adam Gilchrist look like Jeff Boycott.
Some other interesting picks. James Vince went back to the Sixers. Colin de Grandhomme was picked up by the Strikers. Now, this was interesting. New Zealand cricket were very surprised that de Grandhomme was even in the auction because they thought he was going to be playing for New Zealand. And then like a day later, he retired. He just pulled his pin on his international career. So, yeah.
That's the way to do it, though. Wait and see if you're picked up by a lucrative, short form international tournament, and then retire. Why not?
Yeah. And look, it's when you get to the third round of picks that I think this is probably where the marketing department at CA started to lose their shit. Renegades, Akhil Hussain, Stars, Luke Wood, the Heat, Ross Whiteley. Now, I haven't heard of. Look, if I haven't heard of them, you're in trouble. The Sixers, Israel Hook Naveed. The Strikers, Adam Hose. The Scorchers, Tymor Mills. Well, there's a player. Thunder, Riley Russo. And the Hurricanes, Fahim Ashraf.
You're right, Menace. If you haven't heard of them, given that you have been watching on YouTube the Royal London One Day Cup, the England 50 over tournament, you haven't been sentenced to watch that. You've chosen to watch it.
Yep.
The other night you sent it to Jaleesa and me a link to, was it Kenya versus someone? On
Kenya
YouTube
versus Nepal 2 nights ago. It was great.
You sent it to Jaleesa. I mean, this is a public service. This is on YouTube live now if you want to watch. So if you don't know it, that's a bit of a concern if you don't know the names of some of them.
Someone from Nepal works at my cafe, and I went in there the next day and said, I was, watching your team play cricket last night, and he just looked at me with the blankest face.
Yeah. There was so many, third string players from England, right? And the commentators in this amazing television event going, well, Adam Hose, let's find out why they chose him.
So availability won the night. The clubs weirdly, as I said, want to win, so they want the players for the whole tournament, and especially at the business end. I guess you two watched it on TV. What did you think of the event, so to speak? It was, I think Mark Howard was running the floor, and then who did you have in studio? Was it Buff? And
they were just random. Yeah, it was a Buff. It might have been Hussey as well.
Hussey was there.
Honestly, we tuned in halfway through because we forgot about it. So that's how excited we were. And then
you run a cricket podcast. How can you forget about it?
I barely run it.
Well, actually, that's true because you only talk about one topic per week. That's my only bugbear with your show. You just we'll just talk about one thing this week. Yeah. But what did you think of the event? What you saw of it?
It was terrible. I mean, you don't have an option. It was the most boring television. It was just a bunch of administrator boffins chatting for 90 seconds. They took the maximum amount of time to make their decision on someone. And we saw close-ups of them chatting with each other. And then they basically announced someone that nobody's ever heard of. It was the most boring television ever. Give me the bloody Brownlow medal or the
makes the
Clark
Alan Border
Award.
medal look like a great night, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does.
right.
Yeah. Like, and then they just go over and say, what can you tell me about Adam Hose? And they go, oh, good middle order player. We wanted to round out and like they said the same thing about every player, like someone to round out our squad. Good bloke. Yeah, it was all really tiresome.
I am not as critical of the event. Like, obviously the results didn't go great, but I didn't mind the sport of it, like the sideline watching. Like, I take your point. Like, some of the people working in the cricket clubs aren't made for broadcast television. That's what I'm thinking. But that's not their fault. Like, they're coaches and number crunchers and stuff. So it's not a criticism. It's a comment. It's going to come.
The thing is,
yeah, that's right. We had low expectations of them, right? So it was really just the hosts. The auction is great. The IPL auction is great. That's really entertaining. I really enjoy that every year. So I think they could definitely improve on that, right, Paul?
I agree. I like Ponting's suggestion of bringing the Aussies in there, but I also think they kept on talking about, these guys with all the scenarios and permutations that they would have gone through. They're implying that there's 150 hours of work per person, and that there's this massive computer that they've designed. I bet you they just wound up on the day and just gone, well, what do you reckon? Get this guy. If he's not available, we'll get that guy. It would have been 5 minutes. I reckon they overstate the analytical sophistication of cricket so much.
You know what some of the idiots did? They were talking to AFL coaches about how they run their draft. I mean, if that's not a waste of time, what's an AFL coach going to tell you about the Big Bash draft? I mean, give me a break. Some other things to come out of the Big Bash in the last week. Cameron Green has signed with the Scorchers. So that's
what I wanted to say. He should be in the World Cup squad. He's fantastic. Anyway, I won't belabor the point, but I would have got him in there.
Yeah. But sorry, back to your other point, Paul. I agree. Ponting's suggestion. If the draft had all the Aussie players in there, can you imagine Maxwell's picked by the Sixers and then the Stars, use a retention pick and then the glaring of the two clubs? I'd love it. Bit of drama.
Yeah, and they could have lined up the actual players to cross to them somewhere at home on their iPhone or whatever. That would have been good too. Let's go to FAF. What do you think about not being?
I bet Faf was waiting there. They had Rashid Khan ready to speak, and I guarantee that Faf was waiting on the end of a phone and then just silently hung it up. And
Andre Russell sitting on a beach somewhere, what's going on? No one's calling.
Maybe they should just go the full mimicking of the IPL and just make it an auction. I know you probably have to privatise the clubs, but that would certainly become an event.
Yeah. Would the Scorchers players play outside of their state though for other clubs? They don't tend to travel very well. Other news. So that leg spinner that the Sixers have picked, he's only 18, I think, or very young, and he was a net bowler for RCB in the IPL. So that is really a left field pick. But the smoking gun out of all this appears to be the disgruntled, poor Aussie players like Steve Smith struggling to put a dime together, who are unhappy about the money being thrown at all these stars. I mean, I guess, Dan, start with you. Do you think they have a legitimate complaint that Australian players are getting looked over?
No, I don't. I would very much like to see all the Australian players go off to play in South Africa and the UAE, and just the Big Bash be all international players, nothing else. Just get them all in there, play them all. I think that'd be great.
Like the Sixers are playing in South Africa. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, I think it would be good to have the Australian players as part of the draft. That would definitely make it more interesting. And they should have them all just standing there on stage until they're picked too, like a schoolyard pick. Poor Steve Smith. It'll be Steve Smith left there. No one's picked him. He's still standing there on the stage all by himself. So I think they should do that. They definitely should have them all in a room together somehow.
But do you think they should be paid the same?
Yeah. I think he's probably got a point. And I think maybe next year, that when the new deal comes, they will get paid more. But although I think he's got a point, of all the issues that I'm going to march on Parliament House on, this is probably not towards the top of the list.
Yeah.
Aaron Finch,
they got enough money.
I do like the idea of a draft and Steve Smith not being picked, and then Marnus just over whispering in, "Come on, pick Smudge, pick Smudge," and they're like, "No, shut up."
Or just Marnus consoling him, he's a toasted sandwich.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the Big Bash draft picks. Congratulations to Luke Wood and Ross Whiteley and
Phil Salt, someone.
Colin de Grandhomme, really thrilled about you coming this summer.
Bob Smith.
Yeah. All right, so next bit of cricket news. I heard a term I had not used before. Have either of you heard of the term night hawk?
Yes, very excited about the Nighthawk.
I'll explain it then, because Dan left me hanging, but whatever. So the Nighthawk is the antithesis of the night watchman. So you're coming up to stumps, and instead of sending out, a blocker like a Nathan Lyon to survive until the end, you send out a dasher and just go and slog for the last 20 minutes, while just take advantage of the end of the day.
Yeah,
big fan.
This is pure Bazball. This is Stuart Broad is the nominated Nighthawk. We're yet to actually see him in the role, but we're all breathlessly waiting in anticipation. It's going to happen. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I love it as well. And I loved because Aggers was talking about it, and he's like bamboozled by the idea. And I just know that Ian Chappell, when he hears about it, will be fuming. And I like Ian Chappell, but one of my favorite things is anytime there's a mucking around with the batting order, because he's like, you got an order, you stick the day you put bowlers in front of batters, then that's a problem. So I just like the fact that Chappell will be fuming. Plus, it's got some strategic idea. It's in a low-scoring game. If Broad went out and smacked a few, and if you got out first ball, so be it. But if you did crack 20 or 30, it would have been pretty handy in the context of that game.
Absolutely. And, when Steve Waugh was captain of the Australian side, he did change this notion about, batting out the last half an hour until stumps. He was saying, why do that when the opposition's tired? You should take advantage of it. Ironically, he would normally just block out. So he was be not out at the end of the day, preserve his average. But yeah, it's not a new
I also
concept.
like the idea that you might send Nathan Lyon out as the night watchman normally, but tell him he's a night hawk. It could change the way he plays. We're not sending you out as a night watchman. We're sending you out as a night hawk today, Nathan.
I think there should be a cartoon or like a television series. I think Nighthawk could be like a Marvel character,
I think it already is a Marvel character, right?
Yeah, it's
let's say it is.
dark.
Let's say it
It's
is.
something else.
Sounds like
It's a character in the Raymond D. Feist universe, I think. Magician, if anyone's read those Darkness at Sethenon sort of books.
I did read those about 30 years ago.
So did I. Yeah. So I just
If they walk out like with a cape over them,
Yeah.
and you just throw the cape off as they enter the field. The
it's
psychological
broad.
damage would be already done. Like the bowlers would be on the back foot.
I love Steve Waugh's notion of that. You might as well go out on the night and, you might be 12 not out at the end, and that's your 12 runs closer to a decent score. I've actually conducted fantasy interviews in the shower with myself, having done that, gone out and scored 12 not out and then got 100 the next day and explained why I was so happy to do it. It's never happened, but it gives me a lot of pleasure.
Oh dear. All right. The next cricket headline: a win for cricket fans. Mitchell Johnson has been forced out of the ABC commentary box due to his affiliation with a gambling company. I don't.
that bad. Come on. Was he that bad as a commentator? He was pretty bad, wasn't he?
I mean,
I want to know what odds you would have got for him leaving. That way.
yeah, you
Probably
did
put a bet on that.
you did a great job at commentating. I'd prefer to hear you than Mitch.
No, I think that Johnson is he's not the worst commentator, but he's closer to the worst than the best. And he's just not a natural broadcaster. He was a natural fast bowler. It'd be very unusual for someone to be a stratospherically gifted fast bowler and a stratospherically gifted commentator. What are the odds of that? It's just not going to happen. So there's no disgrace in not being a fantastic commentator. But in the same way that Jim Maxwell's never been thrown the new ball for Australia, I don't think that he should have been in the commentary box.
I think he'll be picked up by, there's plenty of commercial commentary places that he'll get picked up by. The ABC lets him go. I'm pretty sure someone else will pick him up. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him again.
And there'll be plenty of gambling ads in most of
Yeah.
the
One of those places that likes gambling ads will pick him up for sure.
The
Which
thing
is
what I
everywhere
don't-
in Australia except the ABC.
What I don't get is if you're a freelancer, I can understand if you're an ABC employee, you can't be doing side deals. But if you're just a freelancer who commentates, a few days a year, it feels a bit weird that ABC was like, well, you can't earn money. I don't like that. I get where they're coming from, but I just think if a freelancer is working, like, as I said, a few days a year, what does it matter how they make a living outside of that? If it's, as long as it's legal, of course.
Yeah, to some degree, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Well, it opens
Mostly,
up
I
a few
just want to see
spots.
Jim Maxwell open the bowling for Australia now.
I've put a bet on him already.
All right, so this is a direct shot at the Final Word podcast.
Oh, God, we didn't sign up for that.
Adam Collins, that snob, said 2 nights ago, we are not covering the 60. Well, I'm going to say to you right here, we are not too good for the 60 on Cricket Unfiltered. We will cover it. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that the St Kitts and Nevis Patriots won. Chris Gale was their skipper, so he won another tournament. Now, this is what I wanted to ask you, Kat and Dan. You often talk about on your show the multiple retirements of players. So Chris Gayle announced his retirement from T20 cricket, and now he's specialising in T10 cricket. So now we've got people who are going to announce their retirement from Test cricket, one-day cricket, international T20 cricket, domestic T20 cricket, and that's not including red ball cricket. That could be like domestic first-class cricket. Now there's a new category, 60-ball cricket.
Yeah, well, I mean, this entire format was created for Chris Gayle. It's the only length he can cope with. So why wouldn't he be involved in it? And as soon as he gets, more decrepit, they'll invent another format that's a bit shorter that he's able to participate in. So I'm no question at all that this is why this particular tournament was created. And good luck to Chris Gayle playing in this. We've talked about the 60 every single podcast, haven't we, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. We can't shut up about it.
Yeah.
We're 60 maniacs.
Collins might turn his nose up on it, but
yes, and that 60 segment was brought to you by the TAB, is what I'd love to be able to say, but unfortunately, we're not sponsored by a sports betting company. But one day, maybe.
And I've never put a bet on the 60 yet, but
I actually watched some of the 60, and I really loved it.
Did you vote on it? Did you vote on it with the app? You know, the app let you get I don't know what, you got a free hit or something.
I would love that. You could vote on which ball would be like the free hit.
Double, yeah.
I mean, imagine they did that at the Big Bash. They got the X Factor. Imagine like KFC voting thing. I mean, need to get
wasn't the girl who got 3 wickets in 2 balls? That was that in the 60?
Yeah.
We genuinely thought, well, maybe this was a new rule. Maybe they voted to get an extra ball. Who knows? Like the rules were fantastic.
Yeah. So did you talk about on your show where she took a
I did.
wicket?
Yeah, wicket off a wide. Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. 3 wickets off 2
Yeah.
balls.
The hat-trick ball was a wide, and she got the stumping. Everything about that is perfect. I don't know what the batter was doing out of their crease on the hat-trick ball. Perfect.
I love what you said, Dan. That
We know what the batter was doing. Sometimes those batters come in and they haven't watched the previous 2 deliveries. We know that's true too.
3 in a row on 3 wides would be the ideal. The hat-trick off 0 balls. That's the dream.
That's the stats dream. So I actually
And look, the
obviously-
Final Word podcast will never get to talk about that because they're just not covering this stuff, this
See,
format.
not good enough. Not good enough.
Yeah.
So they can stick to, well, I'm not sorry. I'll just stop right there. So the 60, yeah. I actually love the concept of and I said it last week, of the carnival weekend, and now what's the CPL and the women's CPL have just started. So the first ever women's CPL, great game today. I watched a 1-run win to Barbados this morning in the women's CPL, but I like that carnival launch. Like that could work for the Big Bash. Oh look, here's Luke Wood bowling to Ross Whiteley, and then in the 60, anyway. I just think it'd be a good way to launch the summer.
Yeah, but you'd want it in New South Wales, wouldn't you? And really, you probably need to launch in a carnival style somewhere in Queensland where it's a bit warmer, because the season always starts in the freezing cold in Victoria for sure, and sometimes in New South Wales as well. So, yeah, carnival style, somewhere nice on the Gold Coast.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my plan. The CPL started. I saw Chris Green, not Cameron Green, playing for a team over there. So keep an eye on that one. And now it is, and look, I should say we've got 2 film experts here. So when Kat and Dan aren't consuming cricket, they also do a podcast about Alfred Hitchcock films. So what's it called?
Hitchpod.
Yes.
And we're not film experts. We're even experts in Alfred Hitchcock, but we really know nothing about any other type of film.
we got some correspondence. Oh, no, actually, I got some correspondence about The Lady Vanishes. Where there's a lot of cricket in that 1930s Hitchcock film. So I watched it. It's on Amazon Prime. Fantastic. Some great cricket references.
Yeah, it's really great.
I know that was a real test. Like the references were for an actual test that was rained out. Spoiler.
Have you seen it, Paul?
No, but when you sent it through to me, and I think I read up on it at the time, and because it's over a year ago now and my memory no longer exists, I've forgotten everything, but I did enjoy reading about it.
You should watch it. It's funny. Anyway, so in that note, we've got a film review segment. And I don't know. So Paul hasn't seen the Stokes documentary.
I'm going to dip out here because I want to already. I respect you so much, Menas, and this is a spoiler coming up that Menas sent a meh about the Stokes documentary, and I'm like, oh, I wish he hadn't sent that because I want to watch it and I want to enjoy it we're often quite similar in our opinions, often different as well. So I don't want any further spoilers. So just give me a wave when you stop talking about it, and I'll put my headphones back on. Literally.
I'm not going to wave at all for the rest of the show.
No, now we're just going to talk about Paul.
Yeah.
We're just going to talk about Paul now, aren't we? While his headphones are
What a
not on.
fucking
We'll never
asshole.
know.
Oh, don't spoil it for me. I mean, Jesus, you're a fucking high horse. Have you two seen it?
No,
Okay, so look,
we don't
I'm
care
not gonna-
about spoilers.
There's a few big spoilers. I don't want to but
No,
England
go ahead
wins-
with the spoilers.
England wins the
He wins it.
2019 World Cup. They
Oh,
win
yeah.
it Headingley.
Yeah, we saw that one.
Stokes punched someone in Bristol, but
Yeah.
now he's a gay rights activist. Anyway, look, I just want to talk
Is that
about
the
it.
guy he punched or him?
Well, if you
Both
believe the
of them.
film, it's Ben Stokes. So
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give my mark out of 10 and then give my reasons for it. And
Mm.
then we'll continue with that, Paul. So out of 10, I'm giving Phoenix from the Ashes 4 out of 10.
Oh,
A miserly 4 out of 10. Now, when I rated the test, one of the producers of the test wrote to me the next day about my ranking. So I'm hoping I don't get anything from.
Oh, what did you
Sam
give the
Mendes.
test?
Like 6 out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
So look, my
So
problem with
yeah.
this.
So it's only 2/3 as good as the test, right?
Yes, and because no one else has seen this, and admittedly, I didn't prep anyone or tell them to watch it, listeners. They haven't dropped the ball as usual. I'm talking about Paul, not you two.
He
so-
thinks Paul thinks we're finished.
I'm not
We're
finished
still
yet.
talking
I'm not
about
finished.
it.
I'm not finished. I was
Lots
just
of
saying that
spoilers.
one.
He's
Yeah,
just
so
talking with
Paul-
his hands.
So 4 out of 10 suck. It's okay. Like, the cricket stuff's good, but it frames Ben Stokes in a certain way I'm not comfortable with. And I felt the mental health stuff was overplayed. So yeah, I just didn't like the tone of it. It was very much trying to gain sympathy for Stokes, which I don't. Yeah, go and watch it, and then I'll ask you on the show again. And I'll get
Where do you watch it? What's it? Is it
It's on
on
Amazon
Amazon?
Prime. Yes,
Yeah.
on Amazon Prime, where The Lady Vanishes is. So for those out there, just sign up for a 3 months trial, watch that stuff, watch the test, and then
Yeah,
bang.
there's lots of cricket content. There's Ben Stokes and The Lady Vanishes.
Yeah, so 4
Yeah.
out of 10 for the Ben Stokes.
9 out of 10 for The Lady Vanishes.
Yes, definitely. All right, well, Paul, you can come back now. We'll do Can't Let It Go. Here he comes.
Hello.
All right. You did miss one spoiler. England win the 2019 World Cup.
What did you say? England can't win this World Cup?
No, they win the 2019 World Cup. I didn't want to spoil it for everybody.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Humor.
Humor. All right. Kat, Dan, can you save us, please?
No, can't
looking
save
for a
you. You're on
co-host?
your own.
Any other cricket news you two want to talk about before we get to Can't Let It Go?
Well, this is the 4th podcast I've done this week, so I think I'm all talked out on the. Well,
Great.
not all of those
Great
podcasts
guess.
are about cricket, but
Great guess. I'm talked out
Let's
after
see.
42
Let's see.
minutes.
No, I think we're okay. I think we've covered everything that's happened this week, Menace. You've done very well.
Yeah, all good.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up with Can't Let It Go, which is that little bit of cricket news you just can't let go of. Dan, take it away.
Well, what I can't let go the fact that Steve Smith has created a new level of weirdness now by just shaking hands with everybody when they take the wicket. He doesn't high five, he doesn't hug, he doesn't cheer, he doesn't jump. He just walks over, gives them a perfectly stern, hearty handshake as if he's like a foreign diplomat welcoming a visitor to the country. It's wonderful. I love it. I love how weird he is, and this is just a whole new level of weirdness from Steve Smith.
Yeah, I was trying to work that out when I was watching, whether it's like an in joke or something.
I think it's an in joke in Steve Smith's mind, and that's probably where most of
He's the other one in on it.
So, Kat, what's your Can't Let It Go? I know you're such an avid listener to this show that you've been saving one up for it.
I need to make sure I don't cover old ground that you've already covered before. But this one, I mean, a lot of people will disagree with me about this one. So it's the best kind of Can't Let It Go, because you should never have an uncontroversial one. But before the last ODI, Glenn Maxwell was saying, the Australian culture is much better now. It's weird how when you're normal to people, you can make friends with them and you don't sledge your opposition and blah, blah, blah. So he was acknowledging how much better the culture was when you don't sledge people. And I reckon it was 5 or 6 years ago that I first went, how backward is cricket? They're all still bullying each other. No other workplace would be allowed to do this. It is absolutely outrageous that any kind of sledging or bullying is permitted in this game. And it doesn't mean you're tough, and it doesn't mean you have to pussy up or whatever. Like, it's just absolutely outrageous that they're allowed to sledge each other. Totally disagree with it. Can't let it go. And that is my total opinion on the matter.
Agree with you 100%. 100%. I've been saying that for ages, and Menas has always said, "No, it's fantastic." And finally, even Menas has come round and realised that it's infantile, it's boorish, it's counterproductive, it's idiotic, and everything you said, Kat, 100%.
He's shaking his head. I don't know if he's
How many
around.
tests have you played, Kat? How much?
I know it must be frustrating to be out there and not be allowed to sledge each other. Imagine that. So I'm with Maxwell on this. I'm totally with Glenn Maxwell.
Yes.
You got on your high horse right at the end there, Kat. I like it. it. Well, you must love Pat Cummins' new team then. They're just
Love
so
it.
nice to
Yeah.
everybody.
Me too.
Yeah.
So, Paul, you can't let it go?
It's also it's I've always said as well, like Roger Federer plays with grace, and look where it's got him. Pat Cummins has played with grace, and look where it's got him. And then, apart from anything else, the one argument against it was always, if we don't play with Mongrel, we don't win. Well, how did that work in South Africa when you dropped the ball on AB de Villiers' head and he went from not really caring to suddenly batting like Bradman? It's anyway.
And on that same thing, I mean, the women don't sledge. They seem to be winning
Yes.
an awful lot of things.
Exactly. Yes, I'm just so happy that someone's as enthused about it as I am. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've now got a very uncontroversial can't let it go. It's almost exactly 50 years since the first Ashes broadcast from England into Australia, and I just think that's really nice. It was the 16th of August, 1972, so I missed it by a couple of weeks. The technology existed in the 1968 Ashes, but they didn't bother. And they didn't bother for any day of the 1972 Ashes until the final day. ABC realised Australia only needed about 120 to win. And they thought, well, we can't be up for too much money because it won't go for too long. And Rod Marsh and Paul Sheehan got Australia home to draw the series 2-2. And so if you were sitting at home, it went live in black and white television for the first time ever via satellite cricket into Australia. And the interesting thing is that 3 years later, when they had the Ashes again, strangely enough, in England, ABC showed a little bit of it, but they'd frustratingly cut off at midnight. I've looked at all the TV guys because I'm such a winner, and they'd sometimes come back for the second session, show 20 minutes of it, then cut it off at midnight, which must have been so frustrating. And then a little known fact: Kerry Packer, ahead of the 1977 Ashes, just before the whole World Series cricket kicked off, actually got the rights because he realised this is going into prime time for several hours. I can show an ad after every over. And he must have made a fortune. So the 77 Ashes was shown in full by Channel 9 rather than ABC. So I went on a bit of a spiel there, but 50 years, I can't believe it.
History was made. Oh no, it's great stuff, Paul. So my can't let it go is just a very simple one. You know, I think we should really appreciate Matthew Wade while we've still got him. I got up, I think, what day was it? I think Wednesday morning at like 5 a.m., and I turned on the telly. Now I turn on the cricket as soon as I get up, whether it's 4 or 5 in the morning. And Matthew Wade was on fire for the Birmingham Phoenix. And he smashed 82 off about 40 balls, finished the tournament on a high. And I just think, the little general, he'll be gone from Australian cricket probably at the end of this summer, but just appreciate the time we've got with him left.
Yes, I love Matty Wade. He's one of my favourite players of all time. I have no question. I love him as a keeper. Loved him as a keeper for Australia. Love him when he's playing for the Hurricanes. Love him everywhere he plays. So I totally agree with you, Menas.
He's a big.
If you're going to be on fire somewhere, you want to be on fire with the Phoenix, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Someone in the mid-90s said to me how we should appreciate Michael Jordan because when he's gone, we'll miss him. And I think, as much as Matthew Wade's a good player, it's that sort of level. I'm not sure that we're going to miss him that much, even though he's a very good player.
I'm going to miss him. I'm really going to miss him.
And I'm going to miss Matty Wade being compared to Michael Jordan. I think that's a wonderful metaphor there.
Well, that was Can't Let It Go, and we're coming to the end of Cricket Unfiltered. So, Dan,
do you guys really think of a Can't Let It Go every single episode? I mean, you must have a lot of soapbox issues if you've got a fresh one every episode.
The reason we do is that any guest who comes on or any regular host who doesn't, Mena's absolutely he doesn't take it well. So.
Yeah, I mean, we work hard on this podcast, Kat. So Dan, I'll tell you about a little thing that happened to me recently. You know, I get this message from someone who shall remain nameless. I'm reading this bloody cricket book, and this guy's got the #1 Australian cricketer of all time. And who do you think it is? And he was like, "Who do you think it is?" Question mark, 1,000 question marks. And I wrote back, "Oh, I don't know." Like I kind of knew what was going on. So I'm like, Shane Warne, because I knew the book. And he's like, "No, can you believe it? This guy's picked Elise Perry." So this is your 50 greatest Australian cricketers, yeah?
Of the last 50 years, wasn't it?
The last 50
Yeah.
years.
The cat.
I've always got to stand up for Bradman.
You know, the
Yeah,
eight
because not enough
copies
people
of
stand up for Bradman. You've got to stand up.
Very true.
the-
It's underrated.
yeah. So, Kat, I know it's a spoiler, but the book's been out for months. I mean, this
Yeah,
is the,
years.
you know, the 6 people that have read it, you know, okay, fine, they know the finish. Now, what's coming though, Dan? What's in the pipeline? Have you got something else controversial? Because actually, you know, your writing, I really enjoy it. So, what have you got coming up?
So my next book will be out in a couple of months, I think, end of October, just in time for Christmas and all those good things. Then the next one's a countdown of the 10 best Australian World Cup wins. So that includes men and women. It includes T20 championships, World Cups, theoretically the Test Championship, but we didn't win that one, so that's out. But you know, all the things that Australia could have won over the years, and of course, Australia is the only country for whom such a book could be written.
That's the thing. That's such a flex in the title. Like it's just it's to everyone.
I mean,
There's
what's
something
the
like
total?
22 or something to
22.
yeah.
There you go. Wow.
Well, if you count the Commonwealth Games, which I forgot about, but the book was already off to the printers before then, they wouldn't have made it. They cruised too easily. But yeah,
Make sure. I hope that the winner is the Women's World Cup of 2019. That is the 29. I've got or 2020. Yeah, 2020.
2020 World Cup.
Yeah, in front of 86,000, just to upset our friend who was upset by the Elise Perry.
He's put question marks. Let's hope he puts a lot of question marks in his next, and let's hope you get a question from him every week, Menace.
Yes.
No spoilers, but yeah, you'll have to find the book to see where that one ranked.
Yeah, I hope someone gives that guy the book for Christmas too.
the new book, because I think he got the old book for Christmas.
Yeah, the new book. It'll
Yeah,
be the same person who gives the new book as well.
So, where's the best place for people to go, Dan, to find your stuff?
Well, you can go to my website, leebcricket.com, LAEB cricket.com. There's a store section there, so you can buy autographed versions of the various books, or you can buy all kinds of things there, or you can just read my writing, get links to podcasts that I do with Kat over there.
Great. Yeah.
And
Hitchpod.
Hitchpod, everything. So that's basically where you find all my cricket stuff, leebcricket.com.
Great. Kat, what are you working on? Do you want to plug anything?
I don't think I'm working on anything other than the Can't Bowl, Can't Throw podcast.
Well,
I
barely
am-
working.
I have-
It's like it's not even 20 minutes a week. It's like
We keep it nice and snappy. People like short podcasts these days, so anything under an hour is good. But I've also been doing some commentary. So I've been commentating with Gorilla Cricket, who are from the UK, and that's really good fun because that's fast and loose. And it's fun commentating on the English cricket, which has been going on at the moment. The series, there was one game versus India. There was a series currently going on versus South Africa, and that was all good fun. So
how do you
so
stay
that's been good.
awake?
Well, I agree to commentate the first session, so it's kind of 8 till 10:30 or something like that. Yeah.
She's in high demand, so she gets to flex her muscles and just choose her own stints.
Yeah, that's fun. But I'm also commentating like you are, I think, Menace, with some of the Cricket Australia commentary this summer, hopefully.
Yep.
So that's all that's going on, and there's a lot of women's games coming up in the WNCL. So that's really fantastic. That's going to be really great to watch, and starting pretty soon.
Definitely. Have you been in touch with Dennis? Do we know what's happening with him?
I think he's safe and well. Safe and well.
In hiding
posts-
somewhere.
He posts on LinkedIn about his normal day job, and I think he's back on Twitter. He left Twitter for some time, but he's back
he
on
is.
Twitter now, so you can find him there if you need to.
Yeah, you can find him there and mute him. It's
Yep.
I'm not sure what's going on with him because I do have him muted, I think. But
Last thing I saw, there was a photo of him and Imran Khan. So that's a big
Yeah.
really,
I think that's an old photo.
Photoshop.
Yeah. Oh no, I
Right,
think
well-
you met him. I just
Definitely met him. We went and had dinner with him at his house.
Mm.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
all good fun.
and then Kim Rankar was sacked. That's what happens when you work with Dennis.
So your 9-year anniversary will be coming up pretty soon then for Can't Bowl, Can't Throw. Pretty soon.
I guess so.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that mean your
Anyway.
9-year anniversary is coming up as well for this?
No, we've
podcast?
already had it because as
Ah.
I've established, I won
were
the
ahead.
race. I won the race.
Yeah.
Just wanna
As
make that
classic
clear.
manners, it sounded like he was congratulating you. He was just subtly reminding you that his was longer.
All involved from the start, Menace. Who was in your first podcast?
I had a
all
guy
from the
called
start?
James McSmith was my co-host, Macca.
Uh-huh.
And then a lot of people came in, Gav and Joe and all sorts. Paul
Kiwi
came in
Bob.
about Kiwi Bob, guys.
You've gone through them, Menace. You've gone
Yes,
through them.
absolutely. And then Paul came in just after the 2015 World Cup, I think, because
Uh-huh.
again, 7 years ago we were still bitching about Aaron Finch. It hasn't changed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 55 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up because Kat said you got to be under an hour. So I'll
Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
to our guest. Well, Dan, thanks for joining us. Leave
No, thank you
cricket.
for having us.
Go and check out his stuff. Kat, I mean, so good you could finally come on. You
Yes.
two must have the best time together watching cricket and talking cricket. And,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
like Paul and I like live in fear of our wives the whole time. Like we sneak cricket on small screens and we're like, I'm just going to the bathroom and like
It
watching.
sounds like you're watching
cricket
it
out
all
the back.
day, every day, Manners.
Yes, I know. That's the problem. That's the problem.
He's in the toilet a lot. He's in the toilet
Yes.
all the
What's he
time.
doing again? Anyway, so thank you for joining us. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks,
Paul.
guys. It's been really good.
It's
Yeah,
been
Paul,
fun.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.